as the two Conservative leadership candidates continue to talk about giving out countless billions in cash as if they were hosting a warped version of supermarket sweep, the Labour Party has quietly and frighteningly been exploring other economic initiatives, one of which is a lifetime gifts tax. Under this, you would pay tax on everything your parents gave you while alive or after they die over the value of £125,000. This presumably means we must keep a tab on all the gifts we get from mum and dad down the years, plus any cash handouts when we get married or buy our first house or car, possibly even when mum buys you a coffee at the shops as well. The current inheritance tax system is iniquitous enough, but this idea the state can help itself to whatever it chooses is evil and destroys enterprise. Seeking to leave something to your children is a basic human instinct. This is straight out of the Hugo Chavez playbook in Venezuela, and we all know what happened there.
OK, so let's look at what John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, actually said.
One report that you've commissioned, Land for the Many, it says that it would recommend scrapping inheritance tax and replacing it with like a lifetime gifts tax. Are you attracted to that idea?
We're looking at it. It might be one of those ideas, and we're consulting on it at the moment.
But are you attracted to it? Do you like the idea?
I think it's interesting. We need to have a fairer system of how we can ensure that wealth is more fairly distributed. That's one idea. And yes, we're listening to a whole range of ideas.
So my view is, I mean, that was Sophie Ridge on Sunday with John McDonnell, and my view is, as it currently stands, it's £325,000 that you can leave without tax. And that is more than enough to set somebody up quite comfortably. So whether or not I'd go the full way is what John McDonnell's suggesting here, I can't say for sure, but definitely we have, with the levels of inequality we have in this country, the fact that there are people, record numbers of people using food banks, the need to redistribute wealth is critical at this point.
So you steal it from other people?
Well, taxes are...
No, you pay taxes. We all accept one pays taxes.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of debate...
And this is a form of tax.
Hold on, my friend. For the purpose of debate, husband and wife put a business together. They make, for the purpose of debate, £3 million, whatever it might be, and they've got a decent house. So you're allowing them the 325 or whatever. The rest of the state just taxes massive amounts, does it?
Well, taxes to a certain extent. Taxes to a certain extent. Taxes to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I'm not
Do
saying
they do boiler suits in red?
So I don't think this is I don't think this is going to work. One of the reasons is it hits so many homeowners. I mean, £125,000. When you look at property prices in the southeast of England, it's going to hit pretty much
Cheshire and places
everyone,
like that,
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a huge vote loser for the Labour Party, which today it's been revealed is polling the lowest it has in its entire history, all bar
polling history since the 40s.
Yeah, since the 40s, right? So, but I do think when I looked into this, I do think there is a genuine bubble we need to look at, and that is the inheritance bubble that is looming. So the baby boomers, being the richest generation in history, right, will eventually pass down that wealth to the millennials, who are currently very poor. Now, part of the problem is the millennials won't inherit that until they're already at retirement age, in their mid-60s. So we've got a big inheritance bubble, a bit like the housing bubble. And what this policy was attempting to address was that problem. And how does that relate to inequality? I don't think they've got the answer right, but it is definitely worth examining, because it's a question that needs an answer.
Michelle?
Well, I'm getting really frustrated with this policy.
There's a lot that's frustrating you today. You're a very frustrating girl. Can anybody help? Can anybody out there help with a frustrating Michelle?
I know. I nearly made a really inappropriate comment.
Well, thank goodness you
I'm not going to do that. No, but
it would have been 3 strikes and you're out.
I know, but I am getting really frustrated with these visions about taking off people to give to people instead of encouraging people to create their own wealth and opportunity. And if you talk about, you can give around £125,000 to a child, well, good luck with that, because most people, if they've worked hard and then they need social care, they would have had to have probably sold that house to fund their own care in the best part. And it's frustrating to me, because what I want is a situation where we are encouraging people, work hard, create some wealth. If you want to pass your wealth down to your children, then do so. And I feel like we're going into a direction of, see that millionaire over there that laid he risked...
Just point that way.
Yeah, Do you see this millionaire over here who has taken risks?
Sometimes I work 4 hours a day.
Yeah,
Honestly,
but
it's unbelievable.
they've taken risks. They've worked many, many hours, often for very little reward.
Well, I don't know
They've
about that
employed other people. They've paid taxes. He's a horrible person because he's got all that money. So take it off him and give it to that person that... I found it politics of envy and frustrating.
It's not about stealing from people who deserve it more. It's about recognising that there are people who have less, who might deserve it just as much. I mean, I'm personally quite privileged. I was born in Darlington, but my parents are both doctors and were able to give me a great school, and I had all the opportunities I could want in life. But somebody just 3 doors down the road, also in Darlington, living in a council estate, would have nowhere near the opportunities.
Why do you want to level down and not bring up? Let's not level down, let's bring up to support Michelle. Rachel.
It's about the mechanisms of doing it and the levers the state has at its disposal in order to equalise what is a very unequal society at the moment. And I speak as a young baby boomer, I think, but you know, I recognise that I've had peak almost everything from peak oil, peak publishing, you know, both in print and in newspapers and books, and
That's
peak property.
By the way,
I've had private education. You know, I've had.
You've been kicked out of some of the best schools in the land.
Several, and. Having said all that, what I was given was all those advantages. I've never actually been given any money yet. Look forward, and I'm not actually expecting any money. So sort of part of me agrees with Michelle.
There's too many children.
But you need. Well, I think people can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. That is not the case anymore. We do not have the ladder of opportunity that we have. We don't have grammar schools. We don't have the social mobility sort of access that we had.
Femi, do you agree grammar schools
and
were
can we just talk about the inheritance tax system at the moment, which is that married couples or civilly partnered couples can hand down to their descendants, or whoever they like, £950,000, which is almost £1 million. And after that, their inheritors have to pay 40% inheritance tax. So I think that as it stands at the moment, I think...
To be fair, hardly anyone pays that, right? So about 4%.
About 4 or 5%.
Yeah, well, because actually, if you're poor, you don't have it. If you're rich, you can avoid it. And actually, it's the middle, as usual, that bears the brunt of this tax. So it's not really addressing the point Femi's concerned about, nor the point that kind of the general philosophy I raise, which is there will be a bubble, and what do we do with that?
I think, Rachel, Femi, I'd really be interested in your view. I think Rachel made a really good point. Grammar schools were, I think, a tremendous tool of social mobility. I think in the past, Majid, you've said that you're a supporter of the grammar school system.
It changed my life. I got expelled from further education college, and my mum put me in a grammar school.
So 3. Michelle, I would imagine you're for them.
Yeah, I
Femi,
guess.
where are you on grammar schools?
I'm in two minds because,
what kind of school did you go to?
Well, I went to a mixture of state and private. But with grammar schools, yes, there's the benefit of kids who are naturally gifted or kids who work particularly hard. They might have that extra ladder, but at the same time, the housing around grammar schools automatically becomes more expensive because it's nearby, and therefore you create that more elitist system.
Not if you have more of them.
Well, no, I think these days the government has asked grammar schools to actually have certain policies in place that allow for working class kids to come in and make sure that they allocate those spaces to them. And so I think there's a lot more to be done, but certainly if you have the caveats there that those grammar schools must reach out to working class communities, then it can really change someone's life. I never went to private school. I've been state school and state university all my life. University of London, I should say. But actually, that 2 years I spent in grammar school changed my educational history. I was pretty much, by all definitions, a failing student before that point, and then ended up getting expelled.
Fantastic.
Isn't 125,000? I mean, that would maybe give you a deposit on a house in London. It certainly wouldn't set you up for life.
That would buy you a whole house in Hull.
Yeah, exactly.
So that I know. Well, you can move there. They'd welcome you with open arms.
You've always wanted me to go to Hull. It sounded like that.
That's
anyway.
very much my problem. One of the biggest issues facing this country right now is regional inequality. You can see where the Brexit vote is based on where there's the least social mobility, and fixing that problem means investing in those areas, fixing infrastructure, fixing transport. But the state needs the money to do that.
We all work in jobs we loathe, for bosses we despise, with colleagues we hate. We do it all our lives. If we can't do it at the end of it, we never see our children from nativity to graduation because we're all working our nuts off. If I can't even leave them my house, what's the bloody point?
Yeah, because there are people who have nothing.
Well, I don't give a damn about them. I'm more worried about my kids.
Precisely the point.
Ah, dear me.
It's precisely
Don't be grumpy,
the point.
Nick.
Dear me.
Welcome to the pledge, Femi.
Yeah.